weapons had been launched 6 months earlier, our invasion of Europe would have proved exceedingly difficult, perhaps impossible.
Eisenhower.
Correct. In England, the main defences against the V-1s were anti-aircraft fire, fighter aircraft, and which other defence?
Barrage balloon.
Correct. Which Munich scientist reputedly first experimented on pulse jets, which powered the V-1? And you may answer.
Schmidt.
Paul Schmidt is right. At the end of that round, Malcolm Charles, you have scored 17 points and no passes. Thank you very much. And our second contender, please. Your name, please.
Barbara Thompson.
Occupation.
Secretary.
Your chosen specialised subject.
The life and films of Alfred Hitchcock.
Barbara Thompson, you have 2 minutes on the life and films of Alfred Hitchcock, starting... Now, according to Hitchcock, what incident in his childhood gave him a lifelong fear of the police?
His father took him along to a police station and asked him to lock himself.
Which was the first film in which Hitchcock made a personal appearance?
The Lodger.
Correct. The last film Hitchcock made before leaving Britain in 1939 and his first American film were both based on novels by whom?
Daphne du Maurier.
Correct. On which film was Hitchcock working when he met his future wife, Alma Reville?
Women of the World.
Pardon?
Women of the World.
No, Woman to Woman. What is the physical defect which makes a drummer conspicuous as a murderer in Young and Innocent?
He's a twitch.
Correct. In Foreign Correspondent, when the diplomat's double is shot, what is used to hide the gun?
Umbrellas.
No, a camera. In 1944, Hitchcock made 2 films for the British Ministry of Information. One was Bon Voyage, which was the other?
Aventure Malgache.
Correct. How did Hitchcock make his customary brief appearance in Lifeboat?
In a newspaper advertisement.
Correct. Which actress, on hearing Hitchcock's oft-quoted remark that actors are cattle, brought 3 cows onto the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
Carol Lombard.
Correct. Which writer of detective fiction collaborated on the screenplay of Strangers in a Train?
Raymond Chandler.
Correct. In Suspicion, by what means did Hitchcock ensure that attention was focused on the glass of milk which Cary Grant carried upstairs?
Put a light bulb in it.
Correct. Dial M for Murder was shot in which short-lived technical process?
3D.
Correct. Who was the director of photography on 12 of Hitchcock's films and won an Oscar for To Catch a Thief?
Robert Burks.
Correct. Which actress, later a star of a well-known soap opera, played James Stewart's ex-fiancée in Vertigo?
Barbara Bel Geddes.
Correct. Who was Hitchcock's first choice for the title role in Marnie, which eventually went to Tippi Hedren?
Vera Miles.
No, Grace Kelly. In Psycho, what is the name of the private investigator hired to find Marion Crane and the missing money, who's killed by Norman Bates?
Arbogast.
Correct. In 1966, which French director published a book based on recordings of a marathon interview with Hitchcock?
Truffaut.
Correct. At the Oscar ceremony in 1968, which award was presented to Hitchcock as a tribute to his career?
A Lifetime Achievement.
No, the Thalberg Award. The script, The Short Night, I've started, it's all finished. The script, The Short Night, on which Hitchcock worked shortly before his death, was based on which real-life incident?
The Escape of George Blake.
Is right. At the end of that round, Barbara Thompson, you have scored 15 points and no passes. Thank you very much. Our third contender, please. Your name, please.
Keith Scott.
Occupation.
Chartered accountant.
Your chosen specialised subject.
The life and career of William George Armstrong.
Keith Scott, you have 2 minutes on the life and career of William George Armstrong, starting. Now, in which district of Newcastle upon Tyne was William George Armstrong born in 1810?
Jesmond.
No, Shieldfield. What was Armstrong's first profession as partner in the firm Donkin, Stable and Armstrong?
Solicitor.
Correct. In 1835, where in Yorkshire was Armstrong trout fishing when he got the idea for a rotary hydraulic engine?
Riverdee and Dentdale.
Correct. Of which new water company was Armstrong a founding member and first secretary in 1845?
The Whittledean Water
Correct.
Company.
Which company did Armstrong form in 1846 to supply quayside hydraulic cranes?
W.G. Armstrong and Company.
No, the Newcastle Cranage Company. In 1847, on which estate near Newcastle did Armstrong establish his great engineering works?
Elsick.
Correct. In 1850, which medal did Armstrong receive from the Institution of Civil Engineering?
The Telford Medal.
Correct. Around 1850, which key mechanical device in hydraulic power did Armstrong introduce for getting sufficient water power to drive cranes?
Accumulator.
Is right. Which bridge did the Elzig works complete in June 1855?
Inverness.
Correct. What was the name of the government select committee set up in 1858 to examine the new artillery which recommended the Armstrong gun?
Rifled Ordnance Committee.
I'll accept Committee on Rifle Cannon. Which works manager wrote a poem on the Armstrong gun which declared Sir William's invention astonished them all with a bolt for a shot instead of a ball?
George Hutchinson.
Correct. Who was the founding manager of the Elzig Ordnance Company set up in 1859 under Armstrong's supervision?
Andrew Noble.
No, George Rendell. In 1863, of which association was Armstrong elected president, deeming it to be the greatest honour of his life?
British Advancement of Science.
The British Association is right. Which Crimean Battle of November 1864 is said to have inspired Armstrong to alter the nature of artillery?
Inkerman.
Is right. What was the name of the first ship built under an agreement between Armstrong's Elzig Works and Mitchell and Company?
Staunch.
Right. Which grand house in Northumberland did Armstrong build and develop from the mid-1860s?
Cragside.
Correct. What was the subject of a serious labour dispute in 1871 in which Armstrong became embroiled?
9-hour day.
The 9-hour day is correct. At the end of that round, Keith Scott, you have scored 14 points and no passes. Thank you very much. And our fourth contender, please. Your name, please.
David Shields,
Occupation.
mature student,
And your chosen specialised subject.
the world land speed record.
David Shields, you have 2 minutes on the world land speed record and its history, starting now. Which driver set the official land speed record 9 times?
Sir Malcolm Campbell,
Correct. The Bonneville Salt Flats, a favourite venue for the land speed record, are in which American state?
Utah.
Correct. In 1898, who set the first land speed record to be recorded officially?
Chesabut Lebas,
Correct. What was the name given to the Genazzi electric car driven to the record by Camille Genazzi in April 1899?
never satisfied.
Correct. In 1902, where in Nice did Léon Serpollet set a new record of 75.06 miles per hour in his steam-driven car?
Pass.
In 1924, who became the last man to break the land speed record on a public road?
Sirgrave,
No, it was Ernest Eldridge. At which venue did Henry Seagrave become the first man to break the 200 miles per hour barrier?
Bowman Beach, Daytona, Florida.
Daytona Beach is right. In 1928, which American driver raised the record to 207.55 miles per hour at Daytona Beach?
Ray Keach,
Correct. Who was a driver of the Stutz Black Hawk who died attempting the record at Daytona Beach in 1928?
Frank Lockhart,
Correct. In 1932, where on New Zealand's North Island did Norman Smith aspire to set a new record?
90 Mile Beach.
Correct. In which Staffordshire car factory was George Easton's giant car Thunderbolt built?
The Beans Engineering.
Correct. Which company designed and built the tyres which were used in Duncan Campbell's Bluebird CN7?
Dunlop,
Correct. In 1960, who attempted the land speed record driving the first car to be powered by a pure thrust turbojet engine?
Dr. Nathan Ustridge,
Correct. Who held the land speed record for just 3 days at Bonneville in early October 1964?
Art Arfons,
No, Tom Green. In 1964, who crashed into a brine lake after his parachute brakes failed at the end of his record run?
Craig Breedlove,
Correct. What was the name of Bob Summers' 4-engine car in which he broke the wheel-driven record in 1965?
Goldenrod,
Correct. In December 1976, which deaf stuntswoman set a new women's land speed record in the SMI Motivator? And you may answer.
Kitty O'Neill,
Kitty O'Neill is right. At the end of that round, David Shields, you have scored 14 points with 1 pass. The place in Nice, where Léon Serpollet set a new record of 75.06 miles per hour in a steam-driven car, was a Promenade des Anglais.
thank you very much.
David Shields, thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of the first round of specialised subjects. Let us glance at the scores. And in joint third place on 14 points are Keith Scott and David Shields. In second place on 15 points is Barbara Thompson. But in the lead at this halfway stage by 2 points on 17 points is Malcolm Charles. On now to the second round, the general knowledge questions, and may I have Keith Scott again, please. He is a freelance chartered accountant, born in Belfast, lives in Stockton-on-Tees and Cleveland. Scored 14 points on the life and career of William George Armstrong to be in joint third place at this halfway stage. Your general knowledge questions are starting now. The titles Kaiser and Tsar are both ultimately derived from which Roman cognomen?
Caesar.
Correct. In sport, what is the full name of the organisation known as the TCCB?
Teston Counties Cricket Board.
Is correct. Which Gilbert and Sullivan opera features the characters Rafe Rackstraw and Little Buttercup?
Pinafore.
Correct. The Russian city which was founded as Tsaritsyn and later called Stalingrad is now known by what name?
Volgograd.
Correct. Which Conservative politician who died last December was generally regarded as the chief intellectual influence on much of the policy of Margaret Thatcher?
Pass.
In Greek mythology, one of the labours of Heracles was to fetch the girdle of which queen of the Amazons?
Hippolyta.
Correct. Which Chancellor of West Germany was born in 1913 and originally named Herbert Fromm?
Adenauer.
No, Willy Brandt. Lyrical Ballads, first published in 1798, was an influential collection of verse by Wordsworth and which other poet?
Coleridge.
Correct. In snooker, what is the points value of the black ball?
7.
Correct. Nephrology is a branch of medicine concerned with diseases of which organs of the body?
Kidney.
Correct. At which English university are Van Mildert, Collingwood and Trevelyan the colleges?
Durham.
Is right. Which American actor born Joe Jewell Jr. played the teenager Andy Hardy in the Hardy Family film series from 1937?
Mickey Rooney.
Correct. In December 1805, at which battle did Napoleon defeat the allied armies of Tsar Alexander I and the Holy Roman Emperor Francis II?
Austerlitz.
Correct. El País is a national daily newspaper of which European country?
Spain.
Correct. From 1831 to 36, Charles Darwin sailed around the world as naturalist in which survey ship?
Beagle.
Correct. Which British statesman was nicknamed the Great Commoner but was created an Earl in 1766?
William Pitt the Elder.
Correct. Which 19th century author founded and edited the periodicals Household Words and All Year Round?
Dickens.
Correct. The main headstreams of the Amazon River rise in which South American country?
Ecuador.
No, Peru. Angelo Roncalli, who was elected Pope in 1958, is better known by what name?
Pass.
And at the end of that round, Keith Scott, your score has gone up to 29 points with 2 passes. The Conservative politician who died last December, who's thought to have been a major intellectual influence on Margaret Thatcher's policies, was Sir Keith Joseph. And Angelo Roncalli, the Pope in 1958, is better known as Pope John the 23rd. Keith Scott, thank you very much. And now David Shields again, please. He is a mature student at Dern Valley Business School in Doncaster College, studying personnel development. He comes originally from Doncaster, still lives in Doncaster, scored 14 points on the history of the world and speed record to be lying in joint third place. Your general knowledge questions are starting now. Which Scottish comedian is nicknamed the Big Yin?
Billy Connolly.
Correct. The holder of which high religious office is invested at his election with the Ring of the Fisherman?
The Pope.
Correct. At British racecourses, what name is given to the system of betting which operates on a pool system like that of the French Paris Mutuel?
The Toad.
Correct. Which city, known for centuries as a forbidden city, is the ancient capital of Tibet?
Lhasa.
Correct. Which military leader did Churchill reputedly describe thus, in defeat unbeatable, in victory unbearable?
Patton.
No, Montgomery. Who wrote the music and lyrics for the 1959 musical Things Ain't What They Used to Be?
Leonard Bard.
Correct. Which organisation founded in London in 1870?